In today's episode, we're diving headfirst into the dark, twisted minds of the Imperium's finest cannon fodder. The legendary Death Korps of Krieg. These guys are the ultimate blend of bravery and a death wish, which, let's be honest, is a winning combo in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Imagine if they'd been around during the Unification Wars. The Emperor might have ditched those mentally unstable Thunder Warriors. Who needs therapy when you got trench coats and a lifetime supply of gas masks, right? In a universe where there's giant robots the size of the Burj Khalifa, crazy orgy demons, and superhuman men that can level an entire city with just their mind, a lowly normal human can only do so much. That is, unless you're a Death Korps Guardsman. These guys are the ones who show up to a kaiju fight with nothing but a spade and a bad attitude, proving that the real heroes are the ones who dig their own graves just a little bit faster. They expect to die out there, as long as they can deliver the Emperor's justice upon his enemies. The 40K galaxy is a big-ass place, and everyone forgets there's not that many Space Marine legions. At least, not enough to guard the areas that Big E's empire covers. In fact, most human citizens of the Imperium will probably never encounter a Space Marine in their lifetime. Therefore, most of the wars were fought by Imperial Guardsmen. Different regiments came from different planets, so the Imperium had a wide variety of soldiers to choose from. They had soldiers that pissed their pants at the thought of gunfire, all the way to Rambos, who could solo 10-foot demons. The Death Korps fell into the latter category, as they had a complete and total lack of regard for their own safety. The commissars that commanded them had trouble stopping them from randomly charging the enemy lines with nothing but a shovel. The people of Krieg were not always like this. The planet is currently a radioactive death world, but before this, they were an extremely rich and populated hive world. They were rolling in dough, since the planet was a key trading post, and they were heavy into manufacturing. Imagine a 40K equivalent of China. But the leaders of Krieg were paranoid that someone would take that power away from them. So they spent a shit ton of money on planetary defenses and private armies that were loyal to the Krieg rulers and not the Imperium that controlled it. With their massive egos, the leaders thought they were invincible. Eventually, the High Lords of Krieg said fuck it, we ball, and claimed independence from the Imperium, and renounced the Emperor as their master. Considering the amount of money they invested into their weapons and military, it would be very difficult for the Imperium to retake it. What they didn't account for was the enemies within. Civil war broke out between the rebels that wanted independence and the loyalists that still supported the Imperium. The Krieg traitors ambushed many of the loyalist strongholds, and the planet fell quickly to the rebels. The Imperial ass-lickers were completely overwhelmed, except for the last hive city. This city was commanded by Colonel Yurten, a man dedicated to the will of the Emperor. However, the Imperium left him for dead, as they did not have the resources to help him retake the planet. This crazy mofo decided that if the Emperor couldn't have Krieg, then nobody would. You see, the Krieg loyalists had a secret option left. Colonel Yurten decided to press the big red button, unleashing a shit ton of nukes, which led to the atomic cleansing of the entire planet. The ecosystem collapsed and their world was scorched. But even a radioactive wasteland couldn't stop these tough motherfuckers. You could throw these guys into the Mad Max universe, and they'd call it a vacation. Anyway, the Civil War continued, and the descendants of the loyalists and rebels would fight on for the next 500 years, surviving in underground bunkers. War would become all that they would ever know, raised to fight from their cradle to the grave. The warriors would have to wear masks and would become known as the Death Korps, existing only to endure their hellish world in order to kill in the Emperor's name. The Loyalists eventually reclaimed the planet over 15 generations, trench by trench, with bayonet, brutality, and a shovel. Now, if you think some of the primarchs had daddy issues, the Death Korps of Krieg might have them beat. Due to their planet's betrayal to the Imperium, the descendants of the Krieg sought some crazy validation and atonement from the Emperor. With no resources left to offer up, they could only give what they had left, and that was fresh bodies to throw in the meat grinder of the 40K universe. They all wanted to impress Big E. What better way to do it than to volunteer to participate in the most brutal wars? They would be sent to the most terrifying theaters of war and gained a reputation for their suicidal tendencies and disdain for retreat or surrender. They basically were the definition of big dick energy and had no regard for their own lives. To die as a living weapon for the Emperor was their wet dream. The Kriegsmen were artificially cloned in underground bunkers. Once they popped out of their test tubes, they were assigned a number, not a name. They were pretty much the clone troopers from Star Wars, but more edgy and suicidal. Once their balls dropped and some testosterone was pumping, they'd be sent off to war. This could be as young as 16 years old. Also, the Krieg did not discriminate. All genders will die equally. Since they wore masks, it was difficult to determine their gender. It's very possible they actually waited until some of their soldiers sprouted a chest, then sent them to war as well. Their most famous battle is probably the Siege of Vraks, where over 14 friggin' million Kriegsmen died. That's more than the population of Sweden. Anyway, the siege was complicated and long. I don't want this video to be 8 hours long, so I'll try my best to summarize it. It all started with a priest named Zaphon, who rallied a bunch of zealots under his banner on the armory planet of Vraks. This drew the attention of the Inquisition, who did not like the fact that he was amassing too much personal power. They put out a hit on him, but the assassination attempt failed. The people of Vraks found out that the Imperium tried to murder their divine ruler and chose to rebel. Zaphon declared independence from the Imperium, and thus the war began. The first strike was handled by none other than the Krieg regiments. They were constantly wiped out by the Vraksmen, but just kept charging into battle like good Imperial minions. The stalemate went on for 7 years, until there were reports that the Alpha Legion Chaos Space Marines showed up to the party to assist Zaphon. This in turn drew the attention of the Dark Angels, and half of the entire chapter arrived, led by the Supreme Grandmaster Azrael. With the arrival of the Dark Angels, they made quick work of the traitors, and eventually forced the rogue Alpha Legion to retreat. Then the Dark Angels pissed off. However, the real battle was just getting started. The retreating Alpha Legion ended up sending a shout-out into the warp, asking for help from all the Chaos fleets hiding in the Eye of Terror. Then shit really hit the fan. The Kriegsmen and the rest of the Imperial Guardsmen got hit by a combined force of Khorne berserkers, world eaters, iron warriors, black legions, mutants, beastmen, and traitor titans. It was a chaos orgy. The Kriegsmen were now being destroyed from all sides and suffered utter defeat. The surviving regiments fought for their lives on Vrak. Meanwhile, Zaphon lost control over his forces as the various Chaos Space Marine warbands assumed direct control. The Imperium decided to send a fresh set of Krieg troops and a shit-ton more Titans for a counteroffensive. They also called upon the Red Scorpions and Grey Knights Space Marine chapters for backup. With these reinforcements, the Kriegsmen were able to take back the planet, and the war was finally over. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If there's any specific 40K lore, topics, or conversations you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to drop a comment below.